What happens when there's a murderer in your classroom? Teachers often boast, when you've taught one of the most prominent people in the world. Imagine what Elon Musk's teacher is currently saying. Imagine what the president's teacher is currently saying. Just think of any of the people that you've taught that have become something, prestigious. If you've taught a doctor or a lawyer or an astronaut, then teachers typically tell everybody about it. But we forget that the reverse is also true. What happens when a murderer is in your classroom? What happens when there's a rapist in your classroom? We don't know what is going to happen to those lives that sit in front of the classroom. What are they going to become? But what we do know is that teachers have got a massive influence on the lives of children. Every single thing we do matters because kids are very impressionable and they look up to their teachers and their mentors. So in today's episode, I interview Ivor Swartz, and this was one of the most enlightening interviews that I've done up to date. Ivor was a gangster. He killed his own brother. He went to prison and he served his sentence. But what is amazing about his story is how he turned things around. He has now left prison and has started Youth the Future, which is a company or organization that focuses on development of youth and supporting youth. And that's his way of giving back. But all of this was possible because he had a teacher that believed in him. He had a teacher. While he was in prison, there was a teacher that assisted him, that believed in him. And I'm so excited to share this episode with you. So sit back, relax, listen or watch this episode, and then give me some feedbacks in the comments below or on any of the social media platforms of your choice. I would really love to hear what you think about Ivor's story, but more importantly, how you can use the lessons from this and impacting the lives of other children. Hi, my name is Francois Nordia, and I am a super teacher, and this is Super Teachers Unite, the show that's all about motivating, inspiring, and supporting teachers. And I'm extremely excited today to introduce Ivor Swartz to the audience. Ivor, thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you so much, Francois. It's a real privilege for me to be part of this. I've been following your work, and I'm super inspired by it, so thank you for this.
No, thank you so much. Ivor and I, we know each other via Facebook and social media because we move in similar circles, but we only had the opportunity to meet, towards the end of last year at the Gaatjie Jeugdleier Symposium, where the two of us actually got to meet. And I just knew from that moment when I heard your talk, when you spoke to those leaders, I just knew I have to get you on the show. And it's very important to tell your story, but we'll get into that very soon. Just to let everybody know, this episode is brought to you by WillTracker, WILTracker.com. Please go check it out. WillTracker is the platform for student teachers, mentor teachers, and university lecturers. We bring the ecosystem of training teachers together on the platform, especially now with lockdown and the uncertainty whether we know whether student teachers are going to go back into schools or not. The training and the mentoring of our student teachers is a major concern. So go check out WillTracker.com. If you are a student teacher, make sure that you can go on there. You can search for a mentor teacher that can show you the ropes and assist you. And of course, mentor teachers, you can get a nice apprentice that's going to work with you, that can help with some of your admin workload. So please go and link up with our student teachers on the platform. Go check it out, WILTracker.com. I get a lot of people asking me what the WIL, the WIL, stands for, and that's just the academic term for teaching practice. It stands for Work Integrated Learning. So workintegratedlearningtracker.com. Go check that out. Of course, all of the teachers that, if you watch this live or whether you watch this on the recording or listen to it on the podcast, remember you can claim your CPTD points. You are spending an entire hour of your day listening to either the podcast or watching the show, participating in the conversations, and you can claim your CPTD points for it. So it is typically a type 1 CPTD point that you can get. If you need more information on that, I can definitely share the process with you. But So that's that for the CPTD points. But ladies and gentlemen, if you'd like to be part of our live studio audience and have the opportunity to ask questions to our guest and participate in the conversation, you are welcome to send me a WhatsApp. I have created a WhatsApp service that you get a direct link to me. If you've got any questions or queries around education and you need assistance, you just jump onto the hotline and you ask me a question. But I also use the platform to share with you early access to our events. And then also, if you'd like to be a guest on the show, you can just send me a WhatsApp and I'll send all of the links to you so that you can be an audience member. That WhatsApp service is +27 63 681 6410. I'm just going to repeat that. +27 63 681 6410. And you can also be part of the audience and join in the Super Teacher community. With all of that housekeeping out of the way, Ivor, I am extremely excited to chat with you today. And I think where I want us to start is take us back to when you were 14, 15 years old. What was the circumstances that you lived under, and then subsequently what happened from there?
Yeah, so thank you, Francois. I dropped out of school completely around the age 14, 15, because the area that I grew up in was rife with gangsterism and drugs, and the pressure of being in that environment inevitably, and not eventually, inevitably led to me getting involved in gangsterism and drugs and crime and violence, housebreaking, theft. Because neither at school there was belonging, nor at home there was belonging. So the only place where you could possibly find a false sense of belonging was on the streets with the gangs. And so I joined. We were a small gang that started breaking into people's homes, robbing people on the street, just as a means to get money for drugs and get money for alcohol and that. And it eventually led that a friend and I, we shot and killed my brother, my eldest brother. And that from there, it's sort of like you can see the cycle of growing up without a father, getting involved in gangsterism and drugs, getting into prison, and then the cycle of uneducated adults and poverty. It just keeps looping itself. And so I was sentenced to 6 years and 6 months in prison. And so I was first in Caledon prison, then I moved to Drakenstein, which is Victor Verster in Paarl, and then I asked for a transfer to Brandvlei prison, which is where in my opinion, the best school in the South African correctional services possibly is.
Yeah, Ivor, I want to take you back to a sentence you just said, and it's like I know the story of yours. That's why I'm familiar with it. But it's such a casual thing that you just glanced over. It's like, yeah, and then a friend of mine and me, we shot my oldest brother, and then I went to prison. I mean, that's a major thing. You just said like, growing up without a father. Like, what was the household situation like? Because of course, there should have been a reason. You don't just kill your brother.
Yeah. So my older brother he sort of took over the role of father, but he wasn't coached how to be. He wasn't taught how to be a father. He was 17 years old when our dad died. I was 3 years old, and so we have a younger brother as well, Peter, that was just born when our dad passed, and his methods of discipline and being an authority figure was so the only way I can describe it is that it was monster-like. He would come home and try to burn the house down after having trouble on the street and couldn't sort it out. He would smash out all the windows. He would Peter once stole some money from our mom, and he was sent to reformatory school, to Boys Town, and he came back home one holiday with tattoos on his ankles and on his upper thigh on the outside, and our older brother burnt it out with, with plastic. And so he had that method of, I'm the boss and I'm the leader and I'm in charge and I will do whatever it takes to inflict, to transfer my pain onto you all. And that created all the bitterness and the anger and the hatred in my heart that eventually led up to that fateful Sunday night where we shot him.
Yeah. So it's like this culture of abuse that you were continuously exposed to, and you just mentioned a very important thing there. It's like nobody coached your older brother. He was like thrust into that situation unwillingly with zero notice. Like, okay,
Yeah.
you now need to be the patriarch of the household. You need to take charge of the household, and that is something very, very difficult to bear for somebody that's 17 years old.
Yes, and I mean, you could see it even in the way that he treated us, and when eventually he got married, and the way that he treated his wife and kids. All of that was just keeping itself in the loop, and it was just, I think it became his second nature to to resort to violence, to resort to anger instead of having a discussion and talking about things. It was never his methods.
And I'm totally assuming here, but coming from the environment that you lived in, was your older brother also involved in gangsterism, in gangs? So it was quite like a violent environment that he also lived in, and didn't know any other way of resolving conflict.
Yes, you are putting it so perfect, because he didn't know better, and so it's hard to judge him when you realize, that was the only picture that he knew, and that was the only picture that he knew what to transfer to the rest of us.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not excusing that type of behavior, because abuse isn't right. But if that's the type of environment that you live in, and you mentioned it in your initial speech here, that you said that that sense of belonging, if you feel alienated in your own household, I mean, it's such a major need of humans to feel wanted and to feel part of a greater unit.
Yes. I remember in primary school, there was one primary school and one high school for the colored community, and then a primary school and a high school for the white community. And in our primary school, the teachers did everything to create that alternative space of belonging. But in high school, it was all stripped, because high school is just an endless battle of finding your place and making your name and making yourself known. But in primary school, there was belonging, and so you could still go from, I'm not getting that belonging at home, but at least tomorrow in Mrs. Clark's classroom I will belong. But in high school, you were just thrust in a survival of the fittest experience, and so that become your primary narrative in the end as well.
Yeah, no, that's something about gangsterism, is that it is not isolated to the streets. It really festers, and we see it in schools happening so much that once you get into a high school, and if there are gang elements in the school, there's this jockeying of position, because you need to find your way in school and belong somewhere, just to keep yourself safe.
Yeah, and all the you put it together so beautifully. All the gangsterism and violence that's on the street, it makes its way to school, because that's how do you recruit gangsters for your group, is you go recruit at the school. And so kids get to sell stuff at the school, and so there becomes rivalry from the street to the school, and it's that endless battle of, now I don't belong anywhere.
So now you don't feel safe at home. You're not in the sense of belonging. You don't have that at school. And you said you started experimenting with drugs.
Yes. So eventually you need something we all know you need a substitute to numb the pain, to numb the hatred, to numb the bitterness. And for me it was obvious. I'm very thankful that at the time there were no tik or nyaupe, or we didn't have access to very hard drugs. We had dagga, and then we had mandrakes. That was the only thing. But our but our day were taken up. Our time was taken up by how do we get money for mandrakes, and we were about 4 or 5 younger boys, 13, 14, 15, and then sort of our role model was a bit older than us, but we were all, we were still juvenile, and now our only time that we thing that we look for during the day is money for drugs.
So that takes away. I mean, you can't for one moment think that you're going to be focusing on any academic work or want to do homework or excel academically, because you're getting so consumed with the dependency on the drug that you, like, everything in your life is I need to get money in order to get the drug.
Yes, and then I mean, I remember in high school how I would skip a whole week of school, and then go back and then catch up on all the work, and then skip a week and then go back. But eventually you missed out on so much that you just kind of lean towards the other side and then completely leave school eventually.
So that's like the early stages of seeing that a child is most likely in trouble and that they will drop out, is this absenteeism.
Yes. I mean, my one teacher at school, when I went back to my old high school to do a talk there, he specifically mentioned the story where he said, I don't know how you did it, but you would be away from school, absent from school for a week or so, and whatever test, when you come back and you have to write them, it's as if you were never gone. But the cycle just, it just got too much that I was absent and then there and absent and there, and it wasn't sustainable.
Yeah. Well, I think that says something about our education system, that if somebody that's as clever as you can spend time outside of school and come back and still pass the tests, I mean, that says something about the education system, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So then eventually, like, you started like dealing in crime, or the criminal elements, like stealing money, stealing appliances.
Yeah.
Like, just to get money in order to buy the drugs. How was that experience?
Yes. It felt like, and I feel like, not ashamed to say it, but you kind of feel like, because the adults or the previous generation in the community that you've witnessed, they've all been to prison, so they've all done something of this sort. So your entry into it isn't as, oh my goodness, what have I done? It's kind of like everyone that you know of your age is doing it. So this is just your initiation into crime. I remember one Friday night, we were walking the streets and we're trying to rob some people, and there was a nightclub close to where we were walking, and we saw a group of girls coming on towards us, and we had our faces covered, and we jumped them, and I was speaking, and the one girl said, "Ivor, is that you?" But she recognized my voice from school. But by then I was completely out of school, and I felt so embarrassed by, here I was, this bright student, this bright learner in school, and now I'm robbing people on the streets. And so that's one of the first moments that I realized, okay, so this is my life now. That school life and all that it's gone. This is now the life that I've chosen.
I'm interested in finding out, like, the progression, because I think that's one thing that teachers can, that's where teachers can play a role, that if you can identify early enough the signs of somebody leaning towards gangsterism or to crime, that's when a teacher can start intervening. So,
Powerful.
I mean, it's not like you started immediately with carrying guns on you. I mean, the weaponry, how does that start?
Yeah, so you mentioned it first with the absenteeism. There they should have picked up, because I was a dedicated learner. I was, from the time that there was prize givings in primary school, I've always came first, second, third. And so they should have picked up on those early signs. But our house is right next to the school, like just the school's fence that separates. So it's not a thing of I don't have access to transport. it is possible for me to come to school. So that's a first sign that you mentioned, that absenteeism. And then the other sign is who you surround yourself, because usually when I was in class, I would sit with the so-called clever kids, because we would inspire and stimulate and challenge each other. And now all of a sudden I'm isolating myself from them, and I don't want to get involved. I don't want to do the group project. So something must have shifted in their time, So that's a big sign for teachers to pick up on as well.
Yeah, it's that thing that they say, and I truly believe this, that you're the average of the 5 people that you spend most time with. So if you're a diligent student and your group of friends, you've got like 5 friends and all of them like academically strong, and like then you would tend to be like that. But as you start including people in your life, different types of people, you start amalgamating into the culture of those people. So if you start hanging out with more people that have got criminal aspects, or they are in gangs, I mean, it's just so much. What does the Bible say? Je word aan jou vriende geken. That type of thing, and so that's an easy way for teachers to notice it. But if a teacher doesn't have a relationship with the kid, then they're not gonna notice it. If you don't take what's the word? If you don't take I'm losing my word here. But if you're not spending time with the kids, and you're not diligently building a relationship with them, it's not as simple as just picking up that something went wrong.
Yeah, I think with the teachers from just my little time in high school, the teachers that I can remember, whose faces come up to me right now, are the teachers who've taken the time and energy to invest. I don't know what, I can't recall a lot of specifics that they've invested in my life over that period, but they took the time to have actual conversations with me and just touch base with me, and them I can remember clearly,
Yeah, and that's the one thing that we keep on saying. It's like there's 3 types of teachers. There's the one teacher that you'll never remember ever because they did nothing. They could have just never been in school. You've got those mediocre or bad teachers that you'll remember for the rest of your life because how they made you feel. Because it's just so. It's like you never wanted to be in their class. You were constantly afraid of them. You'll never forget them. But then you get the super teacher that you'll remember forever. Also because how they made you feel, but because you felt like wanted, you felt appreciated, you felt seen.
Yes,
and those are the teachers that you're referring to now.
Yeah. No, there was a teacher in my old school before prison still, that one day I don't know if I wanted to be clever, but we did math and I didn't do the equation as she wanted it, and I made some funny design lines at the bottom. Although my answers were right, I didn't do it in the way that she wanted me to do, and so she ripped, my page in front of the class out of the book, and that I was never comfortable in a classroom ever again. Never. So those how they make you feel.
And here you are on a national platform, on an international platform, remembering that teacher. I mean, that just shows you how big of an impact that individual made in your life. And hopefully our teachers listening to this or watching this, they don't do that. Or if you have done that before, that you've reformed and you do not want to embarrass kids anymore, because that's not a form of discipline.
Sure.
Ivor, like, when you just mentioned you jumped those 3 girls, I mean, did you hold them up with knives? Did you hold them up with guns? What was the?
Yeah, by then we had guns. Again, we wanted to be like the other gangsters, because if you want to be a gangster, a knife just won't do it. So you make means and you get money to buy a gun. And by then we had guns. And by then I have given in. Completely, like this is who I will be. This is who I will be remembered for how I've robbed and taken from the community where I started. Every kid starts with a dream to give back, to bring good, to help, to serve, to bless. And by then I realized, no, that was a pipe dream. This is the dream now. It's to take, it's to rob, it's to steal, it's to harm the community. And so we had guns, and we were on a downward spiral from there up until I went to prison and slowly began to change again.
Yeah. So it's as you said, this downward spiral, this inevitable like snowball effect until you reach that climatic point. And in your case, it was the killing of your brother.
Yes. Yeah. There's moments that you realize, that was probably a wake up call, or moments, conversations that you've had with because the area that I grew up in called Gaatjie, which is slang for the ghetto. It was a very community focused, so everyone looked after each other's kids. And when you see a kid going off the rails, you hold them accountable and all. And so there was various moments where members of the community or people would say, "Yes, so Ivor, what happened to you? Such a bright kid. Your mom looked so well after you, and now you're on this path." So there were moments of wake up calls, but by then you've completely believed the lie that I am destined, just like previous generations in my family and previous generations in my community of men, I am destined to become nothing. I'm destined for prison, gangsterism, having kids that you don't look after. That is what I'm destined for. You begin to believe that lie so strongly that it becomes your primary narrative.
Yeah, and now after this climatic event, now the job of the prison system is to help with reformation, is to try and get and introduce you back into society as a citizen that can contribute in a positive way. What was your experience like being in prison?
So in the first 2 prisons that I was in was full on prison. There's no. You only get rehabilitation programs once you have a date on your prison ID, and then you go into restorative justice in how to get reintegrated into society. But I was involved in the 26 gang. There's the numbers gang in prison, the 26, 27, and 28. And so I was part of the 26 gang. And so you basically sign your life and everything away to the gangs. But I realized early on, and I don't know how that realization dawned on me, but I realized perhaps even after the 6 years or however long of this that I will spend in prison, perhaps there's an opportunity for me to do some good in prison so that it could serve me when I go out. And that's how I asked for a transfer to Brandfley, because I heard they've got a better school in Brandfley. They've actually got they call their juvenile prison not a juvenile prison, but they call it Brandfley a youth center, just to take away from the stigma, although it is a prison, but they call it a youth center. And when I transfer there, they've got a full-on library accessible to everyone and a full-on school. And that's if I didn't make that move, I would probably have gone deeper into the numbers gang in prison.
Yeah, you would think that prison would be a place of reformation from the get-go, but yet the gangsterism is perpetuated and of course accelerated once you get into prison. That's
survival of the fittest, the fastest live the longest. Those you can be whatever gangster outside on the streets. Once you get to prison, that's where your gangster status will be tested, because you're 24/7 confined to the same space as all the other gangsters. No room to hide, no one to protect you. Once you've got that sign that says, I'm a 26 or 27 or 28, your life is from the get-go in danger.
Mm. Yeah, and luckily you survived that. But I remember you telling the story of a teacher that visited you in prison and made an impact on you. Please tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, so when I transferred to Brandfley, I immediately wanted to get involved in school, because I heard they've got a good school system there, and so I thought, let me sign up. But they work with the ABET school, the Adult Basic Education Training System. So they work with levels. So you begin quite far down on the level because you can't prove you know in what grade you were before prison. But even if you can prove, they won't believe you. You're a criminal. Let's see what you can do. Let's count those little blocks there. But this teacher must have, and that's that intuition that teachers walk around. I think they were blessed with a special intuition, a special ability to sort of like if I can use a biblical term, teachers were blessed with some prophetic seeing. They can see something in us that we don't see in ourselves yet. And so she must have seen something in me. Mrs.
It looks like we lost Ivor there. Sorry, Ivor, it looks like the connection is a bit unstable again. Let's hopeful. I'm hoping that would sort itself out now. Let's see if that goes better. I don't know. Ivor, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, it's a bit choppy.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, it's still a bit choppy, but hopefully it'll sort itself out now. But I want you to just to repeat, because I think you wanted to say the teacher's name, and that's exactly when it stopped.
Yeah. So Mrs. Yolanda Fraser-Hugo, she mentored a group of us at the library. So she would give us responsibilities at the library, and then there was an opportunity to do a peer education course in prison. So we become peer educators in teaching our fellow juvenile prisoners about the dangers of HIV and AIDS in prison, because the classes that they do wasn't working, so they took another approach. And she chose me as one of those kids. But I was still involved, very much involved in the 26 gang, because you can't just give up your gang status. And so we one Friday afternoon, I assaulted a guy. We were three gangsters who assaulted a guy, and we got sent to solitary confinement. And she found out about it, and she came to visit me in that solitary room. And she spoke words that I will never forget, those words, because there was a song of Robbie Williams coming on the radio where he sings, I've got so much life running through my veins going to waste. And she used that as an opportunity to say, but Ivor, that is your story. You've got all this energy and these talents and these gifts and this passion that's inside of you, and you're letting it go to waste on the gangs. Imagine, and that's the beauty of teachers. They always make you excited, give you a taste of. Imagine what your story can become if we do 1, 2, 3. And when she painted that picture for me, I was sold. I wanted to finish school in prison, and she helped me to finish matric in prison.
That's absolutely amazing. And I want to touch on a few things you just said. This thing that you mentioned, that teachers have got this prophetic gift. And I've seen it so many times happening, that the super teacher, and that's one of the characteristics, is it's almost like intuitively they know. You just know. And I think it comes because you've been spending so much time with different kinds of kids, and your experience just lets you know that there's something special or just something different about this individual that I haven't seen before, or it's maybe similar to somebody else, and they can spot potential. And that's what I really think super teachers, that their superpower is that like spotting potential. But then this teacher did something, and I mean, you being in solitary confinement is not great. But it's not like the job of that teacher to come and chat to you. It wasn't assigned to her to say, listen, part of your workload is to go into solitary confinement and talk to the kids that are there. She did it out of her own volition. She wanted to do that.
That's the distinction between a teacher who sees it as a job and a teacher who sees it as a sacred calling. Because when it's a calling, you go the extra mile, because that's what it was. I was in a different section of the prison even as the one where her library is, because she was the librarian as well. And so she had to walk across the prison It's Friday afternoon, so she's supposed to go home. She could just get back on Monday and say, oh, man, you screwed up. You are written off because now I'm in solitary confinement for at least 21 days if you have any offense against you. So which means I will lose my role at the library. But before she went home, she wanted to validate, hey, your worth is not dependent on your latest mistake. Whatever is inside of you, whatever gifts, it is still there. You've messed up and you will have to carry the consequences, yes, but I will be there to walk this journey with you.
And if I can for a moment just contrast this with what you said, that when you were at school, you lived next door to the school. And I mean, there's probably 20, 30, 40 teachers in that school, and not one of them just walked next door to see if you're okay or what's happening.
No.
Here you are in prison, in solitary confinement. This teacher had to go above and beyond her duty to come and talk to you and give you that message. And that I just saw that contrast in the story that you just mentioned. And I mean, it really hit me hard. But then the next thing that you mentioned is the song from Robbie Williams. Now, were you at the time a Robbie Williams fan?
No. What I used to do, because you have a little radio of speaker in each solitary room, and they would play the local radio station throughout the day from 6 till 10, 6 in the morning, 10 in the evening. You'll play the radio station, and I would take a book, and because they repeat the songs often, so I would then, as a song comes on, I would write whatever lyrics I can remember, and then when I hear it again, I would fill in the rest. And I don't know if that song was part of that playlist of mine that I've created, but when that song came on, I didn't understand the power of those words until the teacher mentioned the power of those words.
Yeah, we get exposed to so much music and videos and content every single day. I mean, when we flip through social media, it's almost like we blanketly listen. It becomes noise. You don't really, but you need somebody to just highlight something for you and make it relevant to your life. And I think that's something that super teachers do. If they design a lesson and they bring in a relevant song and lyrics, and change. And I think that's why TikTok is so awesome for teachers. You just have to get onto TikTok. Take the song's lyrics. I mean, back in the day, if this teacher had TikTok, she could have used that line on a contextual way. But here she was taking the lyrics of that song. Like, you've got so much life running through your veins, going to waste. Sure. And she could use that as a motivational. I mean, I think teachers are motivational speakers every single day.
Definitely.
And here she comes and impacts you with one song lyric, and that sticks with you for so long.
Sure. Yeah, no, I will never. Every time I hear that song play now, I remember the sacrifice, the journey, the input, the words of wisdom, the motivation. There's not a day when that song comes on, wherever I hear it, it takes me back to 2005 Brandvlei Youth Center, Mrs. Yolanda Vreesenegel. Always.
We are thankful for your teacher, because now what happened after solitary confinement and after that episode? What happened next?
Yeah, so you lose all your privileges when you come out of solitary confinement. So she had to cut me out of the library program. So you get privilege status A, B, and C. A status, you get invited into all the programs that the prison has, and you have contact visit when your family come to visit. And so I was put down to B status, where it's, you don't have as much movement. You can't participate in outside sport or cultural programs anymore. And your family can only come to visit you twice a month, 45 minutes through a glass a window. And so that's a lot at stake of the consequences that I had to carry. But that teacher was still there. And that's also powerful for teachers and for super teachers to understand that you still have to take some responsibility for your mess up. I'm not going to take the responsibility for your mess up, but I will guide you through this so that it doesn't define you. And so she enrolled me for matric in that year, and she helped me. Actually, it's so funny. After when we prepped for matric exams, final exams, we were three guys who voluntarily went into solitary confinement to focus, for study. And so I was able to go back to solitary confinement, but with a renewed energy, with a different perspective, with a different vision of what I want.
That's there are so many contrasts in your story, and I think it's amazing that, like, you were sent to solitary confinement as punishment, and then later on you choose solitary confinement as a means to focus, because there's benefits to it. So no, that's amazing. So you wrote your matric final exams, you passed matric. Was all of that still while in prison?
Yes, I wrote and finished matric in prison, but then my mom, because when you turn 21, you move to the adult prison. That's like how we would get, you get a car or you get a party or whatever, you go on a luchtballon or something. You transfer to adult prison. Here's your gift. And so I was in adult prison when we wrote, because I turned 21 in August of 2005. And in July of 2005, my mom died of a heart attack. And at that time, my younger brother was with me in the same prison. And so I had all of this decisions to make. Either I can go back into the gang life, but I have this song and this teacher's words, I have them ringing in my heart. And so when I transferred to adult prison, I was already excited and focused about finishing school and getting a release date. And actually didn't take me long in adult prison, and then I got a release date for December 7th, 2005. And by then we were just finished with matric exams, with matric finals.
Okay, interesting. You say your brother was with you in prison. Was it because you had to take care of him there, or was he convicted to be in prison?
Well, he was 28 gang member. I was 26 gang member, and so we didn't sit next to the same fire.
Wow. Just once again a proof, like, the type of environment that you live in is like, you said, it's like almost destined for prison. It's like,
yeah.
And very, very few people take the journey that you've taken, and come out with a mission and a plan.
Yeah, that's the heartbreaking and the really powerful thing about my story is because on the day that they came to tell us that our mom had died was a Sunday morning. We were sitting in the head of the prison's office, Mr. Streyers, and my brother and I were both there. We heard the news at the exact same moment. And I made a choice that he will also never forget, because I told him, I said to him, Peter, I don't know what you're going to do with your life when you leave this place. But I promise you now, this place will never, ever, ever see my face again. And he couldn't make that same promise. And if you look at our stories now, it has turned out the way that I have mentioned it. I've never been back, and he's been back in and out. Up until 2 years ago was the longest that he has not been back to prison. And so it comes down to a personal choice, no matter how the environment help you in that choice, but it's got to be somebody making an active decision. This is what I'm choosing for my life. My circumstances is what it is, but I am choosing in this moment, I'm choosing different. And that made the difference for me.
So then in December you got released, you're out of prison, and what's the first thing you do?
Yes, that morning that there was a group of young adults who were on school on varsity break in December, and they came to pick me up at Caledon Correctional Services, parole officers, and they took me past Grabouw straight to Gordons Bay Spur. Yeah, so it was so overwhelming, because now I can choose what I want to eat. It just for 5 years. It was just here's your porridge, here's your lunch. You eat twice a day, and then you wait for tomorrow. And now I'm outside. I smell the ocean. I can feel the wind. And Gordons Bay is quite windy, and I'm sitting in an actual restaurant, and I can choose. It was everything that I stuck through. It made it worth it. I survived all of that so that I can appreciate and be thankful for these little things, as simple as a spur meal.
Yeah. Well, that makes me immediately think, like, during lockdown now in the last 3 months, that would have been a breeze for you. Lockdown wouldn't have done much to you.
I have said it over and over on Facebook. I've said it. I thought, because I'm a big extrovert and an Enneagram number 7. I'm excited about life all the time, and I thought lockdown was gonna crack me. But surprisingly, all the rhythms from my solitary confinement experiences has just came back. I read a lot, I exercised a lot, and then I did a lot of self-reflection. The same I did in solitary confinement in prison.
So there's a lot, even though it's not, nobody wants to be in prison. It's not a great place to be, but you found yourself there. There are lessons from the dark times that you went through that you can take and apply in your life now. And I think that's the amazing thing about your story, and what you've decided to do is to take the lessons and bring that into schools and into churches and into prisons and tell your story so that other people might even maybe avoid a similar story, or if they can associate with you, that they can also uplift themselves.
Yeah, that's the big, because I go on a lot of school tours just in my personal capacity with Youth of Future, and I go to a lot of rural schools, and you can point to a kid and say, that kid, if he doesn't stop, if he doesn't make that shift, I can tell you in 3 months' time, he will be in prison. You can just see it, And so the idea is to bring my story, bring the bad, bring the good, but bring the lessons most importantly. Bring that to them, and not say, you're going to prison, or showing them how the traces of what happened, throughout my life and how I shifted, and here's how it can make sense for his or her story in this moment.
Yeah. So did you start Youth the Future as your own company? What's the story behind Youth the Future?
Yeah, so Youth the Future is my own company that I started, and with another friend of mine, and we do skills development amongst unemployed youth, and then that's the one leg, and then there's the other leg of me going to high schools to do impartations, workshops, motivational speaking, and then just do a motivational talk or with the teachers. And sometimes I stay a week at the school or so, and I do some assessments and just figuring out, what changes, what small tweaks can they make to bring the kid to become more aware of the next Ivor who might possibly go to prison. But if they can shift his story now, he might end up in a better position. So I help schools with those type of things.
So if you say you're helping schools, are you working with like the school management team? Or are you working with the teachers? Or is it like a mixture?
Yeah, so it's both, and it's the SMTs, session or two. They have some questions, or they have some scenarios that they pitch. And then I work with the teachers I sit in some of the classes. I went to one school for 2 days, and I actually put on a uniform and change classrooms with the kids just to get a feel of what is happening from classroom to classroom, what is happening in the hallways, what is the conversations, how does the kids interact with each other in those space. And then I take all of those information and compile them, and then make some suggestions for the school.
And it makes sense, because you're somebody that comes from a background that can spot things that teachers in general won't be able to spot, or that a principal won't be able to spot, because you've got the experience of living that life. And it just makes sense to get a consultant like you into school.
Yeah. And that's the biggest thing at the moment in schools, is the cultural mismatching that I talk on a lot, that even though it's a colored teacher in a colored school, the teacher often live a completely different life and story from the kid, and to help the teacher breach the cultural mismatch in a way that they can get closer to the kid's story, to understand why they act out and what is my response in when they act out in a certain manner.
That's excellent. Before we go on, just for everybody that's still here in the live studio audience with us, if you'd like to ask Ivor a question, there's a button at the bottom that says "Ask a Question." You're welcome to just pop in your question there, and I'll read it if there is anybody that's got a question. But our structure of the episode today is a bit different than we typically do it. I just want to delve deeper into the story of Ivor, because I'm totally inspired by your first talk that I listened to, and now with this interview. And I think that's the amazing thing of doing a show like this, is I get to ask the questions that I want to know the story a bit better. But now you also wrote a book that's coming out very soon, Die Verlore Seun van die Gaatjie. Tell us about the book.
Yeah, so I'm excited. The book is coming out on the 15th of July, and it's sort of my attempt to take all of my years life experience and the things that I've been through and the circumstances. So I write them sort of chronologically, and then give sound bites of wisdom, of experiences, of life lessons in it. And in there's a whole section of my schooling experiences before prison and how things turned out there, and then schooling experiences in prison and after prison, and what I do and the work that I do now. So it's kind of, as we do this interview now, it sort of take that chronological approach to my life story.
Interesting. I see Natasha says she's watching this with her class. We are amazed. Thank you so much. Sure. Natasha, that's amazing. That's something I didn't expect would happen from this. Actually viewing this in class. So hello to Natasha and her entire class. It's great having you as part of the show. So thank you, Natasha, for doing that. Ivor, tell me about writing the book. I mean, that's not something that everybody does. You do a lot of traveling and you speak at schools and stuff, but why the book, and how was that experience of writing the book?
Yeah, it was one of those weirdly, because you have to revisit every painful experience again, and some of it as I was writing the book, I realized I haven't dealt with completely. There's still some underlying anger or pain or bitterness that's there. And so the writing process was very healing for me, in that sense that I had to go speak to someone or phone someone or ask for more detail from someone. And so when the publisher approached me if I wanna write a book, for them, I thought, who am I? I've always had a desire to write. I think I've always had a desire to write a book, but I thought, what? I don't have anything to say. I'm still growing in my calling, growing in my work. And they said, no, but we do think you have something to say. There's a kid now, 10 years old, 11 years old, 15 years old, growing up without a father, and think their story is hopeless. And you are sitting on the other side of that kid's story and said, I've also thought my story was hopeless. And here's a book in 240 pages that prove to you your story is not over. The credit it's not rolling yet in your story. So yeah.
No, I'm glad that happened, because I see Mignon also says that she's 2 classes away from Natasha, and she and her entire class is also watching the interview. So I mean, just cool. the impact from this alone. I mean, in one of those 2 classrooms, there might be somebody that resonates with your story, and writing a book. And this is something I believe firmly, that you don't have to write a book at the end of your story. There's no such thing. Then there will only be books of dead people. That doesn't make sense. You can write a story, you can write a book at any point in your life. The unique thing is it's your story. There won't be a story like yours out there, because it's unique to you. And I think it's very important. Ivor, is the book going to be available in audiobook format?
Yes, so what we're busy with now, we're putting it out first in Afrikaans and on ebook, and then we're shifting to Afrikaans audiobook, and then we'll translate it to English, and then do English print and an ebook and also audiobook in English. Yeah, so
I
it
think
will be eventually in all platforms and yeah.
I think that's absolutely amazing. I love doing podcasts. I mean, that's also a big reason why I started the show, because I like podcasts and would have wanted my
Yeah.
own. But also listening to audiobooks just is so much easier than me actually sitting down and reading. But tell me, are you actually reading the book for the audiobook? So it's your voice.
Yeah, I will be reading it because I wrote it because the publisher said you must please write in your style, not in the Afrikaans or in the language that the listener or the reader would want it, but in the way that it comes natural to you. So I write quite a few pieces in just my colored Afrikaans slang, and so I will have to read it in that way as well.
That's amazing. I'm looking forward to that. Just time has flown. We are at the end of our show, and Ivor, there's still so much that I'd like to know, and I'm looking forward to more of our interaction in the future.
Mm.
But if other people would like to get hold of you, where can they do that? How do they do that?
So they can the website, our website, www.youththefuture.org.org. So there, all my information is there. But then on all the social media platforms, Ivor Swartz, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter is where I'm at.
Excellent. I'll definitely make sure to tag you in all of the posts. As soon as we start distributing this episode on social media, I'll be sure to tag everything so that people who are watching or listening, they can just pop on over and make contact with you there. Ivor, I want to thank you for taking the time. I know you're extremely busy with the work that you do. So just thank you for taking the time and being part of the show.
Sure, Francois, thank you so much. You keep being a super teacher, inspiring other super teachers, and we'll all tag along and become super human beings in this day and age.
No, thank you so much for that, Ivor. I appreciate that. Before we sign off, just a big thank you to wiltracker.com, wiltracker.com, for bringing us this episode. Be sure to go and check them out. This is where we bring student teachers, mentor teachers, and university lecturers together. If you'd like to be part of our studio audience, I say studio audience, but it's if you want to be part of the platform where we do these interviews and engage with us and ask questions, please just send me your name on WhatsApp to +27 63 681 6410, and you can also be part of the Super Teacher community. If you are watching this on Facebook or on YouTube, give this a like, subscribe, share with all your friends so that we can get this message spread. It's extremely important for me because the mission is to motivate, inspire, and support teachers, but more so to unite all super teachers under one banner so that we can make a positive difference in each and every classroom. Until next time, my name is Francois Naudé, and with me I've got Ivor Swartz, and we are Super Teachers.